Welcome back to Lesson Mentor, and today you will be doing a text effect gradient assignment. You'll need to open Photoshop to follow along with this tutorial, so let's do that now. We'll begin by creating a new document, so I'm going to click New File, the blue button on the left, and set up my document here on the right. I will name my document Text Effect, and we will be using pixels for our document size. So if your box says something other than pixels, go ahead and click on the drop-down box and choose pixels. And the width of the document will be 2500 pixels, so I will type in 2500 for the width and 2500 for the height. I will uncheck the artboards here. If yours is checked, you can uncheck yours as well. You don't necessarily have to do this on an artboard. The resolution will be 300 pixels per inch, and our color mode will be CMYK. So CMY color mode for printing here. And our background, we don't want this to have one, so we will use transparent. Once my settings are done, I will click the blue Create button. Now my document looks like the way I want it. I can see the name of my file here on my tab. Here is my document dimensions, and we can see if we hold down our document dimensions, it's 2500 pixels or 8.33 inches. We can see that here on the bottom. My workspace is set to Essentials. Just in case yours is not, just go up to the word Window on your menu bar at the top, go to Workspace, and make sure that Essentials is set. If yours is not, just click Reset Essentials and it will make your workspace look like mine. Your toolbar may look a little different than mine as well. You could have double tools on your left side. I like the single column, so I just click the arrow in the corner to have a single column. So if you want yours to match mine, that's how you can do it. Let's go ahead and get started with the tutorial. We will begin by choosing a school-appropriate word to use. I will be doing the word Texas for the example, but you can choose a word that has 5 to 8 letters. My font style is Anton. I do recommend using a wider font style, as that will make doing the text effect a lot easier. You'll be able to see it a lot better. So I'm using Anton. You could use a different font style, such as Arial Bold or some other font that you might find on the Adobe Cloud. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and type out the word Texas. I'm using all capital letters to type out my word as well. And once I have it typed, it really doesn't matter the size because I can always increase the size. But before I do that, I'm going to bring in the corners of my box for my type tool so that it's a bit closer to my word. My text is set to middle for my center text. Yours might be set to left. That's fine. It really doesn't matter for this activity. I do just want to bring in my text box a little bit closer to my words. And the type tool should be showing on your toolbar. It's T for type, and I'm using the horizontal type tool. Once I have it the way that I want, I can go ahead and commit by clicking the check mark. Now, in order to enlarge the text, I will use the Move tool. So the Move tool here, and now I see I have my handlebars for my text, where I could stretch that box that it's in, because my Show Transform Control box is checked. If you do not see your handlebars to make this larger or smaller, just double check and make sure that the box that says Show Transform Controls is checked. Now I can stretch my text to cover the majority of my workspace here. And that looks good. We want to have a good visual impact from doing the text effect, so we want to make the text larger. So be sure to stretch your text. Once that's done, I will commit to that. I can click the check mark, or I can click Done on my contextual board or menu here. I see my font style is 169 point. It just depends on your word and the length of your word on how large you need to stretch yours to. Yours may not match mine. And it also depends on your font style that you used on how far you will need to stretch yours to leave, a little bit of room on either side, but not a whole lot. Now that I'm satisfied with that, I'm putting my word in the center of my document so that when I get ready to do my gradient, it'll be a lot simpler for me. We will create a gradient by putting it on its own layer. So to do that, and if I have my layers panel open, then I can see the options that I have here at the bottom. We want to create a new layer, so I can click the new layer icon here next to the trash can. By clicking that icon, I have a new layer here, and that is where my gradient will go. You can also add a new layer by going up to Layer, New, and over to Layer. If you get really fancy, you can use the keyboard shortcut, and it'll show you here on the right what that is, depending on if you're on a Windows computer or an Apple computer. My next step here is to set the colors for my gradient. So that I can do a custom gradient, I will use my foreground and my background colors to do so. Currently, my colors are set to the default black and white. I will use red and blue because I want Texas to be red and blue, and I'm going to add white later. So I'm going to go ahead and set my two colors that I want by opening up the color picker. I know the exact color code that I want to use for the color red, which is B73330, and that takes me to this red color. You can choose the color that you want for your gradient. Just pick two colors that kind of complement each other. And then you will set your color in your color box, and then you will click OK. Now I need to check my background color. I don't want it to be white, so I'm just going to click the arrow in the corner to bring my background color to the foreground. So I'm going to click that. Now I see my background color has been brought forward as my foreground color. So now I'm going to open this up so I can change the color. So again, double click to F327E. So I'm typing that in for my hex number, and then I will click OK. You can use your sliders to adjust the color that you want, and then click inside your color box to choose your color and click OK. We'll click on the gradient tool on our toolbar, and the gradient tool, you can press the letter G on your keyboard to get to it. It should be your first tool that you see. If you're seeing the paint bucket or the 3D material drop tool, you will just need to left click and hold that particular button down and then switch to the gradient tool. Now I'm ready to draw out my gradient, and I have my gradient window open so I can see what's happening in my basics folder, because that's where the gradient color goes when you initially do your foreground and background color, is to your basics folder. If you don't see this window, it might look like this because you may have a different tab open. So just go over and click on gradients, and you can see your basics folder as well by clicking the arrow next to the basics folder. If you do not see this tab at all, go up to the word window and go down to gradients and just check gradients, and that will open up for you. So now I see that my gradient's in the gradient window just as I want it to be. I've created that new layer to put my gradient on. Now all I need to do is bring my mouse above the word Texas and drag it down so that I create a vertical gradient here with my colors instead of going from left to right. Okay, so I've got that stretched out, and I actually want to flip my colors here. So I have my linear gradient, and I want red to be on top. So I'm going to uncheck the reverse box, and now red is on top. You can experiment to find the right combination and distribution of colors for your text. Now that I have my linear gradient drawn, and it's going vertically, I want to add a third color to my gradient in the middle. And I want to be using a lighter color, so I'm going to use white for mine. And in order to draw it, since it's going vertical, I have to bring my mouse to the left of my gradient line, and then I get the arrow with the plus sign that appears here. so that I know that I can add a color. So all I need to do is just left click below there, and you have to be kind of close to the line, otherwise you don't get the arrow and the plus sign. So when you see that, go ahead and click. And now I see that I have another color picker that I can open up to create a color. So I'm just going to click on the center circle that's appeared now. And I'm going to choose a lighter color and go towards white, not quite white. And then I will click OK. You do the same. Now I want to clip this gradient layer to the word layer below it, because right now it's just sitting on top. All I need to do is bring my mouse out to the right of the word gradient here in this kind of open area and right click up to bring up my options. In my box, I'm looking for Create Clipping Mask. So once you locate Create Clipping Mask, go ahead and click on it. Now that's going to clip your color layer to your word layer. As you can see, I've lost the red on my gradient, but that's okay, don't worry. You will be able to adjust that as well by pulling down the circle at the top, and I can bring red down, and I can bring my blue up. I can also adjust my stops on the top so that the white color is not overpowering my gradient. And I'm going to bring red down a bit more and bring blue down as well. So I'm just going to try to keep it as straight as I can until I get the desired effect. So again, experiment and see what you need to do for yours to look the way that you want it to look. Now we're just going to add some effects to the word so that it makes it pop a little bit more. And in order to do that, we want to choose your word layer by clicking on it in your layers panel. Then you can add a layer style by going to the effects on the bottom right hand corner and opening up your options. I will begin with bevel and emboss. Once I click on it, it opens up my layer style menu, and I can see that bevel and emboss is checked here. And now all of the options that I can do with bevel and emboss are provided for me. So if you want the same ones that I have, you can configure it this way as well, or you can just adjust all of these different options to see what it looks like for you when you make your adjustments. So you can increase or decrease the size of your chisel, you can soften it, you can change the angle. Again, all of these things you can do, and if you don't like it, you can undo it by reset to default. Okay, so I'm just going to put in my numbers the way that I like them. And then I'll be ready to switch to my next effect. So I don't have to click out of this box. I can just go on and do the next effect that I want. For this, I will do inner shadow. So I'm going to click that box. Here are my settings for the inner shadow once I click on it. So check the box and then click on it and make sure this is kind of a light gray. That way you know that you're on the settings for inner shadow, and it should say inner shadow here. You can again adjust all of these sliders to get the effect that you want for your word. Once you are finished with that one, I am adding the satin effect. You click the satin effect, make sure that that layer is selected, and here are the settings I'm using for the satin effect. Again, experiment to find what you like for your word. You can add other options to your text as well, but I'm just adding 3, and then I will click OK. Now I am finished with my word, and I can make adjustments as I see fit. So if I want to change anything, I can just go back to my layers panel, open up the already set layer style, and I can make additional adjustments as needed. It's not permanent when I make those changes. Now, you could do a lot more with this. I want to add a solid color adjustment layer to my document so that it pops a little more. So I'm just going to go to the bottom of my layers panel and click the one that's on the very bottom so that my background layer goes underneath. Otherwise, you can just reorder the layer. But I will create a new filler adjustment layer, and I'm going to solid color. And I can see what that looks like if I add a color underneath it. I'm just taking it to black, and then I will click OK. So that is the end of this tutorial. You can again experiment as much as you want to come up with the color concepts that you like and what is visually appealing for you. Once you are finished, be sure to submit that to your teacher the way they have requested. And here's another way on how I could use this particular image for design.